The greatest power you possess is your ability to choose. Join Lowe's Moore as he reveals how you can begin to maximize that power by exploring yourself on the deepest levels and committing to making lasting and positive changes. Get ready to achieve breakthroughs that will lead to accelerated growth and transformation, because you are now tuned in to The Blueprint.
Why the actions contradict the lamb. I'm fellowshipping when I'm with the fam. That's more relations, that's more.
Good evening and welcome back. This is Lowe's Moore, and I want to welcome you back to The Blueprint. Um, Again, as you know, each and every week, I'm always excited. I get the opportunity to come on each and every week and to share with you guys, some amazing guests, some amazing interviews, and it's just really been an exciting time for me. Um, when my daughters used to tease me back in the day, because I used to tell everybody, man, introduce myself, hey, Lowe's Moore, and I'm a communications major. And so my kids would always get up and in front of people and say, yeah, he's Lowe's Moore and he's a communications major. I mean, so, and finally, I am doing something in the area of communication. I love it, because, communications uh, is a verbal and nonverbal ability to communicate with people. Is also media, social media. It's also print, and I happen to be doing a podcast, and it's media also, and it's also communication. So, but I love it. I'm in my third season here at the Blueprint, so I'm really excited to be able to do this and bring this to you each and every week. And as you notice, of course, I'm not at in the man cave, and I'm not in the studio. I'm actually in Baltimore. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I was broadcasting from my brother's garage in Fayetteville, North Carolina during the holidays. And now I'm in Baltimore because I come down to help out a good friend of mine. Many of Marvin and Knights will know, if you're in my age range, you would know Walter Kirkland. He's a great track runner. Back in when we both graduated together, I was an All American in basketball. He's an All American in track, and now he's down here in Maryland, and he's the founder of the 100 Black Men of Maryland, and I happened to drive down yesterday to do a historically Black college panel discussion on all the issues and possible growth of historically Black colleges in the future, in the present and the future, hosted by the great quarterback Doug Williams, who won a NFL Super Bowl with the Washington Redskins, and he was the first Black quarterback to be able to do that. It was a great discussion, and it was a great evening. And on tomorrow, they have their celebrity golf outing, so I'll be participating in that tomorrow. Down here in Maryland, and it's just going to be a great time. And if you don't know anything about I'm not historically Black colleges, but the 100 Black Men of America, right? Their chapters all over the country, and their whole mission is mentor, 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 right? Black men coming together and designing programs and mentoring young Black males, hopefully to transition from boys into men, and giving them an opportunity to network and develop their social skills. So I, I'm excited. They called me. I had to come, and so I'm actually filming from Baltimore. But it's great. We got a great show tonight, and so let's jump right in. I want to jump right in it, and I didn't bring my seed. I usually have my little basketball I call a seed or a pebble, and I usually drop it in the pond because, hey, if you drop a pebble in the pond, you get a ripple effect. somebody's going to be impacted tonight by this interview, by this podcast, and it stays on. So it doesn't. It's on live on Lowe's More the Blueprint Facebook, and also live on YouTube, and it just stays on, so you get to see it even after this evening. And somebody will be impacted. That ripple effect, somebody's going to be impacted later on. So I'm gonna drop. This is my earpods. I guess you can see that. I'm gonna drop them on the floor because I don't have my little basketball with me, and I'm expecting a ripple effect of tonight's show. So let's jump right in it. I want to start out with my book of the week. And I love this book. If you've never read this book before, it's one of my favorite all-time books, right? How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I mean, it is an awesome book. I mean, part of my ability to communicate and also my ability to network, I learned a lot of things, a lot of principles, and a lot of skill development outside of that book. It's just a wonderful book to read, and I actually have the book. It's a part of my collection, and so that's the book of the week, man. If you haven't read that, I mean, it is a teaching and it is a training tool that can be very useful to an individual that just wants to be a better communicator and wants to have a better relationship or develop better relationships, whether they be in their family, in their home, in their community, in their job. It's just a good book. It's just a good read and very practical. So that's my book of the week. And now here's my word of the week: precision. Now all these things mean something, right? When you see the bullseye, all this stuff means something tonight. Every book, every word, they all have a meaning that you will hear about later on in the show. But the word of the week is precision, accuracy, right? Consistency, right? That's Precision is one of those words. Now I did a little archery back in the day at the boys club. We used to do archery uh, until we realized it was too dangerous for the boys and girls club. But we, hey, let me tell you funny, just real quick. Let me tell you a funny story. It ain't funny, but it's actually really dangerous. It's just funny to me now. So everybody remembers a good friend of mine, Ray Williams, who played with the New York Knicks. So the Boys and Girls Club was having a party. The boys club was having a party on the north side, and we were little kids, so we were young, kind of too young for the party, immature. And so we used to go downstairs. The party was upstairs. We used to go downstairs in the gym, get on the trampoline, shooting basketballs and stuff like that. So real quick, long story short, real quick, the lights went out in the gym, and Ray Williams had turned out the lights. Now you can't do any of this today, right? And if you come and ask me about this later, some reporter comes and asks me about this later, I won't know what you're talking about. But here's a story. So we're downstairs and we're trying to figure out. We hear Ray coming down. Where you guys at? Why are you down here? And he takes out the archery bow, right? And we're laying on the floor, and he's literally shooting the arrows all around the gym. Now, I mean, a couple times he actually got close, and you could see the arrows spark off the wall. Right? We had to literally crawl out like we was in combat, crawl out the gym and run upstairs. He was down there another 30 minutes shooting in the gym in the dark, and thinking we were down there. But it's funny now, but actually it was so dangerous at the time. But Ray Williams was a little crazy back then. But I'm thankful to God he did not have precision. That's the key word. He didn't have precision, or he would have killed a few of us out there. So, and then here's my Hill Harper and Pierce Harper affirmation quote moment. I like this. It says, "Avoid arguments, but whenever a negative attitude is expressed, counter with a positive and optimistic opinion." I like that. I like that affirmation. And remember what I said, every morning when you get out of bed, you got to talk to yourself. You got to have an affirmation that you speak to yourself each and every day. And when you find yourself in tough moments, right? I always go to the I got a lot of affirmations, but I always think of them, whether it's a Bible verse, whether it's a quote from Dr. King or one of my favorite coaches, John Wooden. I always, man, when I'm in a negative situation, a negative mindset, I go right to my affirmations and I started quoting them and changing the frequency and sound of what I might be thinking at that time. So yeah, affirmations and quotes are important. So, and next and finally, right, is of course, my music of the week and my movie of the week. And Pink Funk, Animal Songs. Everybody knows this, right? And this has something to do with the show tonight too, as well. Is one of the kids' all-time favorites, Baby Shark, right? I mean, my grandson loves Baby Shark, man. I'm not gonna sing it, but that's one of my favorite things, one of my favorite songs. And just recently, if you looked at my Facebook page back when my grandson Dakota was just a little baby, it's when he started crying or whatever, something like that. And I just took my phone and just put the Shark song on. And I mean, he's only a few months old, but he watched that thing until it ended and then started crying when it was over. And man, that's how powerful that is, right? So, and then my movie of the week, it's been about 100 Jaws, right? I mean, man, them Jaw movies terrifying, man. And whenever I'm at a beach, I'm always looking around, man, because you just never know. But I mean, if you want to, if you want to be a little scared, watch all 900 of the Jaws movies. So, but it's relevant to the night show. So, let's stay tuned. I got a little highlight here, and then we're gonna jump right into the show. Oh, this is a reminder. Who's coming next? Okay, coming next is my good friend and my teammate from the Los Angeles Clippers. He played with me with the San Diego Clippers. We was in San Diego together. And Terry Cummings is going to be with me on next week. I don't know if Terry Cummings is a Hall of Famer, but he should be a Hall of Famer, right? He's one of the greatest power forwards we know. And just an amazing person. Now he's a pastor, apostle. When he was in the NBA, he was an elder, right? And Terry's just amazing. And I'm looking forward to having our conversation on next week. And then following him, I got AJ Woodson from the Black Westchester. And we're going to have a great conversation. I'm really thankful to AJ because when he was just starting out with Black Westchester, he used to always have the Boys and Girls Club of Mount Vernon in his newspapers consistently. He used to always come around and interview kids and have them on the radio show and different things like that. So I'm looking forward to that conversation as well. Right? So now let's jump into this highlight and we'll get rolling after that. right, we want to welcome to tonight's show Dr. Harris, Dr. Nicole Harris Hollingsworth.
Hello, hello. Wow. I have to say that was a little surprise there.
Yeah, yeah, we do a little work and
I
research.
see. I was like, oh,
and,
well.
yeah, I was interested. I looked at a couple of interviews with you
Okay.
online, and particularly uh, were you working at Meridian
Yes, a Hackensack Meridian
and
Health in New
yeah,
Jersey. Yes. So New
and
Jersey's largest health system.
I when I played in the NBA, I played with the New Jersey Nets. I
Mhm.
lived in Hackensack,
Okay.
so I'm pretty familiar with particularly Route 17.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
everything is on Route 17. So
Pretty much.
yeah, and so I enjoyed my stay that year in Hackensack. I mean, you know, a lot of people would know about it, but nice place.
No,
I enjoy
it's a
it.
great community. It's a great
Yeah,
community.
and I before we get into getting to know who Nicole is, and I had asked you before the show in regards to your job responsibility,
Yes.
social determinants,
Yes.
right? And I just showed the video,
Yes.
um, and people would really have to look at that
Yeah.
and to know what it is. So before we get into who you are, uh, talk a little bit about, because I think people need to know, because a lot of times we're just not informed about what's available and what programs out there, and what things are working on our behalf, so that we can have a better life, quality of life, and a better life in regards to health.
All right. Well, thank you again for showing that video. We spent a lot of time putting it together because it's a simple thing with a really complicated name. But the social determinants of health are everything that can cause someone to not be well that has nothing to do with you actually being able to go to a doctor or not. So if you live in a community with poor food and poor schools and poor transportation access, your likelihood of being able to stay healthy is harder. If you come to the doctor, so you're really super responsible about that, and then your doctor says, "Oh, great, I want you to, take this prescription and change your diet," but there are no pharmacies in your neighborhood or no pharmacies that you can get to, and there are no supermarkets, then it's going to be really hard for you to maintain your health. So my job and the job of my team is to actually identify where those gaps exist, where across now the state of New Jersey, but previously in New York, to be able to say, okay, great, what communities are we seeing poor health outcomes? And then actually talking to people. They're like, what's happening? And oftentimes they'll tell you, I would love to do it if I had access to any of these social related services, better schools, better food, better jobs, library services, if I just had people who spoke my language. And so then we create and work with those communities to create those types of programs so that if your community didn't have a supermarket, okay, great. We're going to bring in the National Supermarket Association to plan a supermarket for your community. We're going to work with the bus companies, and in New York, obviously, New York City Transit, in New Jersey, NJ Transit, to make sure that the bus routes are actually connecting in ways that make sense for the community where you're trying to go, and you don't have to walk 2 miles between bus stops. All of those kinds of activities make a difference in keeping someone healthier.
Yeah, I kind of understand, and we're both living in Mount Vernon.
Yes.
So if I can kind of, you tell me if
Narrow
I'm
me
right
down.
or wrong.
That's right. I have a deep and abiding love for the community of Mount Vernon. I've lived here many years, and for me, as a little kid, it was my aspirational community. I grew up in the South Bronx and went to school St. Joseph's first and then the Milestone School in Mount Vernon, and was like, when I grow up, I'm going to live here. And when I grew up and I bought my first my house, technically the only house I got, I live here. And so, in the city of Mount Vernon, when I think about, social determinants, it's all of the factors that make a difference for us. So, we have a hospital, but most people don't know what happens inside of the hospital. So part of that's part of that is addressing healthcare, but it's the other things, everything from having safe and well lit walking paths to making sure that buses run in places and at times that are convenient for people, to making sure that after school makes sense. Those, we've known each other for a number of years, and I remember when my boys were little, they wanted to walk to the club. And I was like, okay, great. How am I going to get you across Lincoln Avenue safely, and then across, down Gramerton safely, and then to all of these places safely, to be able to move around? All of those are social needs and determinants, and it's those kinds of things that we want to work with communities and people who are already doing the work, but use the force of large institutions. In Mount Vernon, there is the Neighborhood Health Center, there is Montefiore, there are lots of other organizations who can utilize there's the mayor's office, who can utilize their influence to have an impact on social determinants to make things better.
Well, yeah. Just like, I guess the current hospital in Mount Vernon was thinking about relocating,
Right.
right? And so there was people were saying, well, if you relocate, to another part of the town, how do the town people get to there? Are you going to provide transportation? Or I guess that's what you're saying.
Yeah. So, it's, I do not work with that hospital anymore. I work for a different one. So by no means,
no, I wouldn't
on
even.
behalf of the hospital. But I do know that there are teams there that are looking into all of those elements. Right now, that is a part of keeping someone healthy. And so, every hospital, that one included, is looking for community input on how to do that better and to say what the concerns are. Hospital movement's a very complicated thing, so I'm not even treading into that water. But at the same time, the biggest thing that, as an advocate for communities, we can all do is to really sort of speak your concerns. So if you hear hi, we want to do whatever it is whatever is being proposed. If you have a concern about it, to speak it, and to speak it clearly. So the concern is, how do we get from where we are to that place? Then that's the concern. If it's about hours, if it's about accessibility, because even things as important as curb cuts, and I know both the current mayoral administration and the previous one had done a lot of work around making Mount Vernon city streets accessible to individuals who were both what's considered able-bodied as well as having various physical challenges, to make it easier to just move around. All of those kinds of communication should go forth to a healthcare institution as well. But just as important, Mount Vernon, I remember when I first moved here many years ago, there weren't as many supermarkets offering as many things. And, last week I was in the food town right off of Prospect, and, just an amazing, and I'm, again, not selling anything for them, obviously, but the availability of fresh fruits and produce in the city of Mount Vernon has increased exponentially in the time that I've been here, between what's available at the supermarkets as well as various mayors' efforts on setting up Summers farmers markets, making those things available to the community, and increasing access to Access-a-Ride for individuals to be able to move around. So yes, all of those are social needs and social determinants. My job is to both identify the problems and help people find the solutions, and then implement the programs.
Yeah, and before we digress, I want to just another example of being a part of the Boys and Girls Club back then, being a part of the fabric of the community, right, is to know the needs of not only just the members but the members' families, and and be able to help them in regards to has to do with school district, is to to talk with parents or to help parents find their voice or find out that they have a voice and what's available to them. Have you found that it's hard for the community, right? They have these access, they have these benefits, but sometimes they can't hear you or not listening to you about what they have. Do you find that to be difficult?
I mean, I think that people are very busy, and organizations all make assumptions that, well, I said it once, or I sent out a letter, or I sent out an email, and so they heard me. And oftentimes, by the time people realize something is going to be a challenge, it's kind of too late, because like the moment like it sort of clicks, like, hey, this is a problem. And oftentimes it's too late. One of the experiences that was really productive at the club was around backpack meals. And the whole notion of like, it's not just that, we'll take care of kids inside of the club, but like we're going to send them home with not only food for themselves, but food for their families over the weekend. One, that's addressing a social need, but for a lot of people, they had no idea, because it was completely outside of their scope, that this was something that they had access to. They had no idea that they had access to ongoing summer meals. They had no idea that they had access to food resources. Feeding Westchester and the county is huge. People don't know that they have awareness. And so as representatives of organizations, we can't get tired in repeating ourselves, because people will come to you when they have the need, but you have to just keep saying the message over and over and over again. And I think often organizations get fatigued because they're like, oh, well, I said it already. People should just know.
Right.
Like, no, you need to say it like every week. Because look at, when I look at older adults, we have the shift in retirement ages. It used to be some people would retire at 62. Now the bulk of people are retiring at 65. And we have the new crop of people who are now eligible to retire at 67 in terms of receiving their federal benefits. Most people have no idea that you can apply for Medicaid. Most people have no idea about the 40 quarters. Yet every year, we've got people who are turning 62, 65, and 67. So like that kind of education needs to be ongoing. There doesn't need to be fatigue. And, I even though I'm working in New Jersey, even in Mount Vernon, still having those conversations, still setting up public forums to make sure that information is available. Because I don't want, especially in this community I care about, for people to get caught out there not knowing. And I know I have access to a tremendous amount of information, but organizations such as like Unite Us, which maintains these large databases that people will have access to, email, phone, a lot of it's communication, a lot of it's just public speaking. But yeah, we have that responsibility to get the message out. No one is tired of hearing it.
Yeah, definitely. You got, yeah. Well, so keep staying on them because people need to know that they have like benefits.
Yes.
I mean,
so many benefits.
Seniors need to know that they have benefits. Fortunately for me, when we had our youngest son Isaiah, he was disabled, right? So we didn't even know the school district had these kind of access to benefits for him, and until we had him.
Yeah.
Once we knew, we started to realize it's not just being disabled, but some kids are slow learners, right? And they don't know they have benefits, that or access to those benefits that are in our school districts. If you can't take a test, you could in a group. There's benefits to take it in a smaller, in a private setting. So many times we just don't know these things, and I'm thankful to you that you're helping to make people aware.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the work is ongoing, and I see more of a future in sort of, I don't want to call it adulting, like people aren't responsible adults, but it's more along the lines of, you don't know it until you need it. And so there's nothing in the, when you have a baby, no one gives you a book that says like, oh, if your child doesn't talk by this age, then pursue this route through the Department of Education. Like some of these things are experiential, but we just want to make it easier for people to find out that information across all of the areas. Those I wish it was just like, oh, well, we could just do it about education. we could have the same conversation around, like, if you have a family member that has a stroke or some other kind of disability, and people are like, okay, great, my family member's been in the hospital for a few days. Now what do I do? How do I get a caregiver? How do I get home help? What do I do? And it's so many families struggle through when they don't have to, because there are so many benefits available.
Wow. Well, hey, that's, I always say each week, man, we throwing out nuggets or dimes, right? Those are very powerful nuggets that people need to hear. And not only just people hearing it tonight, but also sharing what they hear is important, and letting them know. If I want to know what these benefits are. When somebody says there's benefits, I want to know all of them.
Well,
Even though I probably haven't, turned to 65, I probably don't. I probably haven't taken advantage of
you have
my
not.
benefits.
Right. And I mean, there are lots of really great organizations inside of, the city of Mount Vernon that can do a lot of that. So, obviously the hospital is there. There's a community outreach and engagement department that works closely on that. But additionally, the neighborhood health center, we have localized, so where it's a Bronx Westchester hybrid version for older adults. Because, like, I have my AARP card. I'm old enough to have it. Uh, and there are lots of benefits that are available and accessible there. There are also a number of community benefits that are just available for people to access. And so, I have literally, I came from an event this afternoon where someone was like, when are you going to write another community health needs assessment? And I will partner with some people to do that, to make sure that it gets out effectively. But we want to make sure that the resources are available and accessible, and oftentimes they're free for older adults. The Office of, the Services Outstation to Seniors program out of Westchester County's Office of the Aging, which is located right here in Mount Vernon. Most people don't realize that. I'm like, it's right on First Avenue, First and First.
And that's the Office of the Aging.
Literally for the county, but it's here its seat is here in Mount Vernon. All of those different types of programs are available. So I can definitely provide you with some web links to make available to your listeners and viewers as a part of your standing resource page.
Oh yeah, definitely, without a doubt. And my friend, before we really digress here, my friend I was talking to him the other day. He turned 65. He said, and he was in CVS, and they was like offering him, "Hey man, how old are you, man?" He's like, "Oh, I just turned 65." He said, "Oh, you got Medicaid? You need to come over here and sign up for Medicaid." He said, "Well, do I get if I sign up, do I get the silver slippers?" And I was like, "Silver slippers? What are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh yeah, man, I get to go to 24-hour fitness for free." I was like, if I got silver slippers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
There are so many benefits, and I think people are amazed. There are even little benefits, it's, getting discounts at movies and things like that are fun, but, information is power. And so even just access to web links and web conversations, for, the term is BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. AARP right now has a tremendous amount of information and specialized web resources. I was listening to one of their podcasts called AARP Sisters, which is specifically for Black women. And it talks about interests of, 50 plus year old Black women. There are just so many resources. And then, of course, organizations, including all of the Divine Nine organizations, the fraternities and sororities, everyone is making lots of things available. The key is getting it together and all in one place. And so, again, glad to get those to you guys to get links shared. If this were Jersey, I'd give you a different set of links, but for New York, I'll prep those.
Okay, so we'll look forward to it.
Okay.
And so let's digress for a moment. Let me get to know who Dr. Nicole Hollingsworth is. Talk to us a little bit about your family growing up, current family, importance of faith, importance of education.
All right. So I am proudly a South Bronx kid. I grew up in Highbridge, so for all of you guys from the South Bronx repping for Highbridge, totally a fan. A few blocks away from the stadium. And I grew up in, I want to call it a complicated family of my era. So my
Mm.
parents were together and then they were not. I was fortunate enough to have a blended family, and that I grew up with my biological sisters and my cousins. But those are my sisters because that's how that works. And as a little kid, I have to, being the youngest of that particular bunch. I'm exceptionally grateful for my parents and my community for not stifling my creativity. I am, I think, just curious by nature. And, as a kid, I was sharing with you earlier, I was never what anyone would consider a bad kid, but I wanted to know lots of stuff. And so the two times I got in real trouble in my family was one where I wanted to know what was in the inside of a cushioned toilet seat. And my mom let me have it because she installed the toilet seat, and an hour later I had cut it open to figure out what was inside. So that was a problem. And then another time I had been watching some special on PBS, and I wanted to make rubber, and we had a rubber tree. And I was like, "Ooh, well, that's how you get rubber from." So I took all of the leaves off the rubber tree to make rubber. So I thought, and I was singing that song. It's like, guess who makes that little old ant think he can move a rubber tree plant? Everybody knows an ant can't move a rubber tree plant, but he's got high hopes. And I'm skinning the leaves off this tree trying to make rubber, and my mother was not very pleased about that as well. So I learned, stop killing the stuff in your house and destroying the stuff in your house. But no, grew up with a lot of love and a lot of support for my curiosity. I was a really bright kid. I was a part of the busing program, so I actually got bused to school, which is how I discovered Mount Vernon. So there was a school that was open for a short time called the St. Joseph School at 444 Fulton Street, right next to what was then a parking lot and then became a McDonald's. And then when that school closed, the teachers from there left and founded the Milestone School. So then I went there. But I was in school, and I remember coming to Mount Vernon and thinking it was the perfect community because next door to the school at that time was a Nabisco cookie plant.
That's right.
And so every day I came to school to the smell of fresh baked. I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is where I'm going to live, where I grew up. So I went to school, Mount Vernon Elementary School. I ended up going to middle school in New Rochelle, a Catholic school there. And wanted to go to a high school because the middle school was a great school, but it was a predominantly, Irish Italian community. And I really felt like I want to go in and blend in a little bit. Like, I don't want it to be like, hi, Nicole's not here. And everybody knows Nicole's not here because I was like out on any given day. And so I went to Cardinal Spellman High School with a strategy and a plan because, I, like lots of kids from New York City, I tested for specialized high schools, but I didn't want to go to a specialized high school. And sort of this is where the strategy part comes in, because I knew that for the kind of college I wanted to go to, they weren't going to take everybody. Like every school has limits. And so being even at 14, sort of more forward thinking, like, okay, I want to go to a great college. If I go to an amazing high school and there's a chance that I'm not in that top 25, I couldn't imagine that a college would take more than 25 kids from one school. But if I went to like a really good high school, well, not everybody's going to want to go to the same colleges that I'm trying to go to. Whereas I knew with a specialized high school, someone would. So I went to a great high school, go Spelman Pilots, and I did exceptionally well. And then in my family was the first one of my siblings to go to an Ivy League college. So then I went to Cornell for undergrad, Columbia for grad, Harvard for postdoc. But in terms of like how all of that fits in with my family, my siblings and I are all first gen. first generation college students.
Mm.
My mother, once my second oldest sister had gone to college, went back to get her associate's degree because she was very inspired by my sisters. My sister went to the Lincoln University in Lincoln University, Pennsylvania.
The Lincoln, the
University.
Lincoln.
And so, being first generation and sort of coming through that process, I didn't know a lot about college. I thought I was going to be a doctor because I've always been very health oriented and health minded. I got to undergrad and realized there are other ways to be a doctor, and so ended up pursuing that. But
Mm.
as a first generation student coming out of very challenged economic means, my parents were not, we had all of the things we had before it was EBT and it was food stamps. We had those. We stood on the assortment of there was a cheese line and we learned how to work with that. There was no frill foods and we learned how to work with that. Coming from a background where we weren't necessarily very financially well off, we were exceptionally supportive. Education was key. My siblings, my living sisters, Leslie and Lynn, loved them to death, kept me out of a world's trouble and dissections and things like that. But just really nurtured my curiosity. My mother didn't crush it. She was hard in the ways that moms can sometimes be difficult, where she's like, you can't go to that party, you can't go hang out, you can't do what you want. But it was a supportive environment for me to be the kind of person that I wanted to be and sort of like stay in the rails. So those are sort of like my people. And I have amazing extended family who jumped in and gave me a lot of love when my family got a little unstable. So I spent some time in different sections of the Bronx just because of moving around. But none of those things got in the way of me wanting got in the way of me wanting to move forward. Like, I'm still rocking these pearl earrings, so like little things. But yeah, it's I have to exceptionally grateful for growing up in that very communal way that I think made a lot of difference. What I can say, and Lowe's, please pull me back if I'm going off on some wild, crazy tangent, was that when I got to college, it was very different than what I expected. My college tours had consisted of going to my sister's colleges. I didn't necessarily have the benefit of let me go to a bunch of different places. I went to Cornell because I got accepted into a whole boatload of IBs. And my mother, being my mother, was like, great, you can go to any school you want to as long as it's in New York. And I was like, but I got accepted all of these different places. And she's like, yeah, but any school you want to as long as it's in New York. So I went to Cornell, which is a phenomenal school. And
it's not right around the corner either.
It was out of Columbia. And she said if I went to Columbia, I had to live at home. And I was like, oh, so Cornell it is. Congratulations. But, as I went to college, I can't say that I was academically prepared. So thankfully, my high school did a really good job at that. I can't say I was necessarily socially prepared. I remember getting to college, and the first night that I went to college, I sat on the bench in front of my dorm, and the dorm director came outside. He's like, is everything okay? Like, what's happening with you? And I was like, I've never been outside after 11 o'clock before. And I wanted to see what this magical thing that happened after 11 o'clock, because my mom was that mom. And she's like, nothing happens after 11 o'clock. I was like, oh, okay. And then I went back in and went to sleep. But it was, that first year was really hard. My grades sort of did that thing that sometimes grades do. And I got that fun-filled little letter that was like, hey, maybe college isn't right for you. And as a person who was not at all a quitter, I was like, oh, no. Like, college is for me. This is for me. And turned around a horrific, I think it was like a 1.6, 1.7 GPA.
You sound like you was in shock.
Yeah, it was a hard transition. And then graduating with like a 3.7, which coming from if you get a 1.6 in your freshman year, that's the first semester, hitting a 3 anything is its own miracle. But, lot of grit and determination to do that. I want to add in for any college students that may be listening to this. I had a really big argument with my mom, which I want to call it sort of the precipice to adulthood, when I was within that semester, because I was like, I don't want to be a doctor anymore. I want to serve communities. And because of my family and my background, we didn't know all of these different kinds of things that you could do. Like, you went to college and you were, a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, like there were very specific categories. And so when I was like, I want to work in public health, my mother was like, I have no idea what that is. And, and I didn't pay for you to do that. Like, that's not why I'm paying for you to go to the school. And I was like, well, that's what I want to do. And she was like, grown-up decisions mean grown-up actions. Congratulations, you get to pay for school yourself. And I was like, ooh. And then she was very serious about it. And so I had to get a job like October of freshman year, which then I got like a billion jobs, and I became like, I was an RA, I worked in food service, I waitressed, I bartended, I did all of the things to be able to afford school, because I knew I wanted to stay, but I also knew what I wanted to do. I was really clear on that. And so for me, working in public health was like, it's literally what I do around the social determinants of health. Back then it was just called public health, but it was the idea of, there were people who were challenged in communities and they needed help, and they just needed to know. They needed someone who could talk about who had the experience of having lived it. Like, I'd lived being on welfare, and I'd lived not having good medical care, and I'd lived being in a neighborhood that was, being set on fire every other day because it was the South Bronx. And so being able to both know and help is what I wanted to do with myself. And so, I did it, and, graduated from undergrad. Everybody was super proud. Both parents started rocking the Cornell mom, Cornell dad t-shirts. And I was like, really, people? Like, you guys are like, I'm not going to pay for this.
You're going to pay me back?
No. But I mean, they were really good about it. And, for me, it was very much the trajectory in public health. I do have to thank, my childhood friends. I had a number of friends who, and I want to make sure I phrase this right, because it's really about giving them the credit. When I was a teenager in the Bronx, like, pregnancy rates were out of control. And I had a number of friends who got pregnant. And because of how I was, they came to me and they were like, hi, like, this is what's happening. Help me. And I helped them find clinics to go to, and adults who would be able to help them move through this really challenging part of their life. And I realized at that time it was something I was good at. And, not that I want to say like, oh, I'm grateful, like this thing happened to my friend, but I'm grateful that this situation had the silver lining of unveiling to me what it was I was good at. And so, through their life experience, I was able to do my life's work. So I'm actually one of the few people I know where both all of my degrees and my professions line up. I have like always worked in my field. My degrees are in health education, health and behavior studies, reproductive health. The only one that sounds a little weird in that list is executive and organizational leadership. And that's just because I want to be the boss one day. So you got to be trained for that too. But beyond that, a very clear trajectory on, school to, how school fit in with my work. And, tremendous family support. Again, not always like nice and kind. I remember if you watch any one of my interviews, I've had like all of the hairstyles. And I remember the first time.
Well, we just showed the many faces of Nicole.
Yeah, I remember the first time I appeared on television. My mother was like, "Why does your hair look like that?" And I was like, "I was on television talking about important science stuff, and you were looking at my hair." She's like, "Yeah, so why does your hair look like that?" So I mean, it's, I'm grateful for the community that raised me in this work, and it sort of ties into sort of what next look like. I know one of the questions that you wanted to talk about was faith. and sort of how
Hmm.
does faith tie into all of this. So nope, got that too with a fro. That was my rebellion day. I don't know which that. So I'm wearing a T-shirt that says "My Black is Beautiful." I've got my afro. I'm wearing black Nikes and black jeans, and literally my whole family was like, "Why? Why do you look like that getting your doctorate?" And I was like, one, because I can, and two, because I'm going to be comfortable. And so that's a funny story.
Hey,
But and
hey, you the parents, wild child.
yeah, but like gentle wild, like it's not
Oh
wild.
yeah, just a wild, yeah.
But I do have to tie faith into all of this because I didn't grow up in a religious household. My parents were loving, they were strict. My mother was sort of Catholic by origin. My father's family was Baptist. But that, so we sort of got like the holiday version. We got Christmas. We got Christmas as like a Christmas tree. We got Easter as like an Easter basket. But we didn't necessarily. It wasn't sort of grounded in Christianity the way
Hmm.
I understand it now. And I want to say there was a small pivot, thanks to Sister Constance at Blessed Sacrament Elementary School, because when I started going to school in New Rochelle, and it was like this part of an integration program that was again a function of the era. My family was very informative around like the Black Power struggle, and that like we are a Black family. You should be proud of being Black. A funny story I'll tell you later about my sister teaching my son who couldn't talk how to sing "He's Black and He's Proud." Like I mean, like we were very clear on like who we were as Black people. And when I first day going into this Catholic school, I had never gone. No one briefed me on like welcome to Catholic school. So I go in the front doors, and there is this life-size replica of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ crucified, and I had no reference for it because when you go to Baptist church, you get a
Mm.
cross, usually like with a gold circle around it, like it's sort of this very stoic imagery. So I'm not used to seeing like someone who looks like a someone on a crucifix, and I thought it was a lynching as a little kid because I didn't have any
Wow.
context for it. And
Wow.
I ran outside the school because I was like, whoa, that's what they do to like white guys here. I don't know what they're going to do to me. And Sister Constance, God bless her, chased me down the street, caught me, fast little nun, and was like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, I don't understand. And she was like, well, like that's Jesus. And I was like, that's not the story I had gotten. And she was like, well, we go to church like on a regular basis. And so you can learn this story. And I was like, okay, I'm willing to learn. So she takes me, the Catholic school has a church. And at that time, they're doing the mass in Latin. I don't understand a word of Latin. The,
Yeah, I
the,
hear you.
I was like, and I was like, what are they saying? And so she explains the sort of detailed version of the story. And I was like, nah, get out of here. She's like, no, like really, like this is it. And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, well, you can learn Latin. And I was like, okay, I'll start learning. And so literally from fifth grade forward, I started learning Latin. Latin all through elementary school, Latin all 4 years of high school, took my regents in Latin. Um,
Mm.
Ended up spending a summer writing a report for the Vatican on the inscription of historical churches. But that for me sort of started opening the idea of spirituality as the concept and the Bible as something, not just that my mom had open on, to the 23rd Psalm on
Hmm.
her nightstand, but really this sort of interactive living document that applied to me. And
Mm.
so, over time, that became like not only just understanding it historically, but also understanding it, what it meant in terms of like, how do I build my faith? How do I trust? How do I
Hmm.
share? What does kindness mean? And so understanding those principles are now 100% core to who I am. But yeah, it sort of started with a patient nun chasing a kid. Actually, that kid you saw, that picture you showed was me on that day where I was running down the street. And and it turned into a super deep appreciation of the place of God and spirit in my life. So
Awesome.
that's
Yeah,
really
yeah. And I think, I mean, you said some important things, particularly if I go back a little bit about most people say they want to go to college,
yeah.
right? And then they say, "Oh, well, I want to be a lawyer," right? But the question is, okay, what what kind of lawyer? I mean, oh, I want to be a doctor. Okay, what kind of doctor? Like if you're going into the medical field, where you going in the medical field or the health field? You
Mhm.
know, like communication, you can say, oh yeah, I want to get a degree in communication. Oh, what type of communication? I mean, I think families, parents need to know that when it just blanketly saying I'm going to be a lawyer, it's a little bit deeper than that. You got to research that. So I think that was important what you said, and also, you know, in terms of faith, yeah, I think when you're young, you don't really understand. You know, even if you went to church, you don't really understand, and you don't know how to apply that, right? And so you have to grow up a little bit to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
And so yeah, faith, so family, faith, and education is so powerful. And you know, and I think everybody's wants to know more.
Mhm.
You know, wants to have a better understanding of that. And I appreciate all the things you said so far. And then the other part of family is where you are right now.
Ah,
So talk a little bit about uh,
that's my my best friend, my partner, and we don't commit crimes, but we definitely spend a lot of time together. My dear darling husband, Ray Hollingsworth, we have been together for 35 years, married this year will be 29 years. So we're chasing you guys, uh, and definitely looking to you guys as a model. But we have two sons, Aaron and Hunter. There they go, Aaron and Hunter. They're 23 and 24, both college graduates. So we're exceptionally proud of them. And that's weird. You got my son's pandemic. He graduated in the pandemic, so we had to have a graduation in the backyard for him. But I'm like, look, I'm a doctor. I can confer degrees, so I confer. Uh, and just they are very much the cornerstone of why I do all of this fun stuff. They are the ones, my children, thankfully, are actually the ones that got me into sports. I was not, I grew up what I want to call typically athletic for my era. So like rode a bike, sort of ran track in high school, that kind of stuff, but nothing really serious. And it wasn't until my kids were, I want to say 9 or 10. Actually, I went at the Boys and Girls Club, but for my oldest son had a game, and I remember going there to cheer for him. And he, afterwards, you give him sliced oranges, and he was like, and I was like, I was cheering for you. Did you hear me? And he goes, yeah, but that's what you were supposed to do. And I was like, well, wait a second. Like, when do you get to cheer for me? And he was just like, sort of looked at me quizzically, like, why on earth would I do that? And I was like, oh, okay. I need to give you a reason to cheer for me. And so literally he was 10 and I signed up for so basketball season fall, that over the holiday, we were watching the Ironman triathlon on New Year's Day. And I was looking at that and I was like, I'm going to do something like that. I knew I was going to do that. I was like, I'm going to do something like that. And he just sort of looked at me like, your mom, you don't do that. And I was like, I'm going to do that. And, and then my husband laughed because he's like, you do lots of things, but you don't swim. At that time, I wasn't a big swimmer. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to go. And I went and I took the refresher swim class at the YMCA that used to be in town.
Yeah.
And that August, I did my first triathlon. I was 38 years old. So he was 10. And I was like,
Come and cheer me on.
well, that's marathon, so that's later. But that first,
that's not a triathlon. That's
no. But that first triathlon was hard. I came in second to last, but I did it, and I was like, "You guys are gonna stand here and you're gonna cheer. You're gonna have a mom sign. You are gonna cheer for me." Since then, I have done so much. But yeah.
Well, we're gonna now enter into this curiosity conversation. Oh man. So
Yes.
hold on. Before you go into this, I call it, you don't call it an adventure. I call it an adventure.
It's
You
curiosity.
know. And so we're gonna show this this little clip here. And then we're gonna get into the million things that Nicole does.
Okay. jumps. I remember those.
Oh, like my brother, I saw my brother down here. He said airborne. Oh
Yeah,
man.
training jumps. So you need 200 jumps to carry your own camera, and I've got 43, so I can't carry my own camera. But that was one of my training jumps. One of my instructors filmed that for me, and it was amazing to be able to not only jump once, but like I said, over
How
40,
many times?
43 jumps under my belt, and I have an A license, so I'm not jumping at night yet. But the pandemic got in the way of a lot of my jumping. But at the same time, love so curiosity on skydiving, because people are like, what are you curious about? One, is gravity real? Yes. Two, the air actually does smell different that high up. You smell the ozone, and it is a beautiful thing. So if you like to smell very, very, very clean air, jump out of a plane.
Yo, your husband's video still has me shaking. Oh man. And then your nephew was like, your nephew said something as well on
Yeah.
there. But
Oh, my cousin, yes. Yeah, so my family is, again, like I said, tremendously supportive family. They all think I'm slightly crazy, but tremendously supportive. I think it's important for people to dream about who they want to be and the kinds of things they want to do, and then really just do it. It's okay. Like, everyone asks me about all the sports that I participate in. I'm not like winning any world records here. Like, unlike you, like, I'm not competing on the national stage. Like, no one is going to give me a medal other than like the participation medals for these things. It's really about, am I doing it? Am I having fun? Am I having this experience? Am I learning? I am a curvy girl. And so a lot of times people think like, oh, well, like, I've got to wait until like I'm this particular body shape or body type to be able to do this. And you don't. For Patrice, you know what? The jumping is not the hard part. The landing is the hard part, because you jump and you're like, oh, this is fun. And then there's that point when you're about maybe 1,000 feet from the ground and you're like, wait a second, I got to land in one piece with this canopy and no one telling me how to do it. Like, I got to remember what I learned in class and like not end up in the ground. And I have landed in one tree. So I did land in one tree because, again, and lesson learned, don't have arguments with your husband before you jump out of a plane. You need to clear mind for that. We can have whatever you want for dinner, honey. I promise to not be picky about what dinner is anymore. But beyond that, it's for any sport, for anything that, yes, I did land in a tree. For any sport that you want to participate in, or even just move your body or explore the world, we do it. It's possible, and oftentimes people think that they need to be good, and you don't need to be good. You need to train as appropriately as you can, but you really just need to do it. You're not trying to come in first.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about a couple of those things. Okay. So let's talk about what you've done. Let's see if we got a picture for it.
Okay, let's see. So obviously skydiving. I've done scuba diving, so certified scuba diver. Thank you, Captain Marshak. I ski. Not well, but I do ski. I do archery. So the archery example was great. I have not only regular shots, but actually the one on the lower left-hand side is my Robin Hood shot, which is when you shoot an arrow and then you shoot an arrow into the back of that arrow, which is pretty cool.
Oh, nice. I see that.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
I'm not gonna be mad with you.
and I have two bows, both a compound and an Olympic bow. And I have to thank my older sister, who ironically had been super big into archery. And then when she passed on, left me all of her archery equipment and was like, you're going to do this. And so I became an archer. Tank diving with sharks. I know that alludes to sort of our baby shark example from earlier. So,
Yeah.
I,
And Jaws.
yes, and Jaws. Sharks are beautiful creatures. I've got a trip planned to Atlanta to go free diving in a controlled environment with sharks, because that's something that you can do both in the Atlanta Aquarium, and then my diving has either been here in New York or like sort of quarry diving, where you can get doing that. And my husband, when I first went to dive school, he participated with me, and then we went on our an open water dive, and he was just like, I'm not enjoying this as much as I would like. So he's like, you can do this, but like, it was fun doing the first part with you, but he's not. So I'm hanging around for the open water dive. I've climbed 2 volcanoes. I've climbed a bunch of glaciers. And so, glacier climbing in Iceland. I have breached the tectonic plates, most recently the North American and European tectonic plates. Also in Iceland, where the 2 continental shelves come together. Oh yeah, that was a lot of fun. This is actually the coolest picture I've ever taken in history or whatever. I feel very Top Gun. Let's see. I mean, I feel like I've done like lots of stuff. Obviously, it's there have been an assortment of races, marathon triathlons. I'm sort of looking over because I'm like, I did the polar bear challenge because there's lots of things to do.
Polar bear plunge.
Yes. So yes, I go run out there in the new year and run into the ocean. In terms of traveling around the world, I have been to every country in Europe, with the exception of Ireland, Switzerland, and Portugal on foot. Quick, funny, my mom's story. When I went to Europe, I was married. And I was doing that project with the Vatican. And my husband was like, I don't love it, but this is what you want to do. So fine, like, go ahead and do it. And my mother was like, I don't care what your husband says. You guys are young and stupid. And so you've got to call me every day. So her way of being grateful or showing me that she was super proud of me was that I would call and then she would complain. And that's how I knew like things were good. So I remember my aunt, I had called home and I couldn't get my mom that day. So I spoke to my aunt. And my aunt was like, your mother's complaining about how you're in the Arctic Circle. And why does she have to get a phone bill from the Arctic Circle? And then she goes, she's proud of you, baby, right? And I'm like, yes, I know she's proud of you. Like, that's how she So I can say in my family, I am the first to breach the Arctic Circle because I do know that. But again, so much about like what's there and who's there, and getting to know people and seeing places and broadening my perspective. I have to say that particular trip actually broadened my perspective on racism in a way that I didn't expect. I was traveling by train at that point because it was over mountains, and so you can't do that part on foot. But I was traveling by train with a gentleman who was from a country in sub-Saharan Africa. And as we were entering Germany, they did the passport check, standard, like, hi, passport, thanks, goodbye. And when they took his passport, they asked him a whole bunch of questions that, like, mind you, I had just been talking to this guy. For all intents and purposes, we were the same, foreigners traveling by train, barely resourced because we were young. And he actually got put off the train because I had an American passport. And at that time, the currency of an American passport was that you could go wherever you wanted to go. And he didn't. And so he not only got put off the train, but also like went through this whole other process around like, what was his intention, and did he have enough money, and did he have enough resources? And I had always sort of, coming from my just US based perspective, I thought racism was about like this American Southern experience interacting with this European experience. And I didn't realize contextually that as an American, there are privileges that I have that I completely miss. Like completely blind to. And because of my ignorance in them, like, had I realized, like, oh, this, he needed, like, the equivalent of $40 to not have gone through that harassment, I'd gladly
Mm,
give it to him. But I didn't realize, like, I didn't have that foresight because I didn't have
mm,
that experience. And so that part of that trip really helped me to understand sort of how people in the States miss the privilege they have. Because, like, in my role, I interact with a lot of people, and they're just like, I don't feel like I have this privilege you're telling me I
mm,
have. I don't see it. I see myself the same as you. And that experience on that train with that gentleman gave me a different perspective on how you can be blind to it, not intentionally blind to
mm.
it, but that how you can be blind to it and how to help pull the blinders off. So when I'm having conversations with people about privilege, I never attack it from the, well, you've got this, and my folks have got this. And so it's more like, let me show you how you can miss it. Because here's an instance where I missed it. And it wasn't it was me realizing that I had a benefit that I just didn't even realize I had, and how it impacted someone else. And someone was like, oh, and then we were able to get through some impasses. So I am, for me, super transformational trip. But again, that's part of the curiosity, the learning. You
Mm.
learn when you travel. There was a question around, have I been to Africa or the Middle East? I have not, or not for real. I went to Morocco. Morocco is a real country. My trip to Morocco was not a real trip. So that was like, I need to do that better. Actually, I call it my delayed, not denied. I intend to spend my birthday in Ghana this year, this fall.
Oh,
So
nice.
that is the plan to get me there. COVID came very much in the middle of that. So I had a milestone birthday, but obviously global pandemic, and I was working in a hospital, so I couldn't go. So hence the delayed, not denied. But I'm very much looking forward to that trip.
Awesome, man. Because my son Lozy studied abroad in Ghana.
Oh,
He was there
that,
6 months,
oh,
and there's a number of people. Um, uh, I think well, his name back in the day was Wayne Boykins, but Natanya
mhm.
Halevi, uh, owns a hotel in Ghana. I think he's on the Ivory Coast over
Okay.
there, and yeah, good people out there. They took Lozy in for the first 2 weeks. He stayed with them, and then he went into Ghana, where the school was, and he stayed, had I guess had some mentors and people that took care of him while he was there, and he had a great experience. Uh,
Okay. I'm hoping to do some teaching while I'm there. In addition to all of these other fun-filled jobs I have, I am a professor. I have I'm on the faculty at Columbia University, adjunct faculty at Columbia University at Teachers College, and so I am very studied at the University of Accra. Oh, yes, that's the plan. So I am hoping to really have this be transformational.
you, I mean, you done stuff in your lifetime that some people just sit around dream about.
Yeah, but I forgot that. So I love things that go fast, except for motorcycles, because those scare me. But I
Oh, something scares you?
just a little.
Oh, you
So
jump out of a plane, but you won't ride on a motorcycle?
pretty much that's how that works. But Cedar Point, literally, I want to say it was 19. So right before the pandemic, Cedar Point, for those of you that have never been, is the United States and actually the world's largest coaster park. So they have 28 high velocity coasters. That is the fastest, which goes in excess of 140 miles an hour. And so, I flew into Sandusky, flew into Cleveland, drove up to Sandusky, Ohio, spent 15 hours at the park, jumped back on a plane, and flew back to New York.
Must be nice.
It was,
And
happy birthday to me.
yeah, I mean, what was that feeling?
Oh, I mean, it's So ironically, I started doing high-speed coasters after I was skydiving, so it's not as high as you think it is. And I was sort of like, oh man, that was it. But it's just a fun rush, and so I enjoy that part. I also am one of the few women I know who really like camping and also like urban camping. So, which my uncle, God bless him, was like, "Why are you practicing being homeless?" I'm like, "I'm not practicing being homeless. I'm, I'm urban camping." So I'm a part of a group called Camp Me, and they actually run urban camping tours all over the city. We did urban camping in Battery Park City, so I paid someone more money probably than I should have. Well, it went to a good cause because it went to support the Coalition for the Homeless. Yeah, parked out in Battery Park City. So I have not met a campsite that I don't like. I have camped on Stromboli volcano in Italy. I can sleep outside comfortably. It's a good thing. And then of course the marathon was tremendous. I ran that marathon very much like my very first race, where I prayed to all of the ancestors around, like, please get me through this thing. But
how many miles was it?
26.2 miles. Plus, then they make you walk a mile afterward because they want to make sure you're not going to fall out. And then I literally went to work the next day. So you can do that. But yeah, it's really a great way to see the city. Again, and this is what I mean by family inspiration. My mom would go out and watch the marathon. I never went with her. Like the years when she was alive, she'd every year go out and watch the part of the marathon that ran through the Bronx. And I never went with her. And so then when I ran the marathon, running through that section of the Bronx, my whole family was actually convened in the spot where she would normally sit. And it very much felt like, she's there with, like, this is my mom. Hi, Mom, I'm running this race for you. And so I ran, and that is a beautiful memory, exciting race that I ran. So there's a comment around making people look lazy. I don't. There are days when, I want to talk a little bit because these sort of, I know we've only got a little bit of time, but there's something called imposter syndrome, which is where you think like you're not doing as well as sort of others, and you get this sense of like, I'm not really doing this all that great. And there are completely days when I have that. Like there are days when I'm just like, I don't think I'm doing enough. I think I'm a slacker. And in the end, it's like different forms of negative self-talk. And even with like a lot of accomplishment, like those things are real too. I mean, like I can look at my resume. You've shown a lot of my physical activity resume, but my professional resume's got a ton of stuff on it, as we've shared. And there are days when it's just sort of like, hey, like maybe I should do a bit more than what I'm doing. Maybe I should strive a little differently. And like everyone, I have to be careful to make sure that I am taking time to rest and rejuvenate, and to engage appropriately, to make sure that I'm taking care of myself. Because otherwise, like you'll be like, if I'm not doing all of this stuff, like I took time off because there was a global pandemic and my work demanded that I take time off from these activities. And there were some days where it was hard, where I was like, wow, like it's been like a year since I jumped out of a plane. Am I a slacker? And it's like, no, there's a global pandemic going on and you work in healthcare. You need to not do that. Is it more adventurous to do those activities or to work in social determinants of health? It is more adventurous to work with social determinants of health. My work is my true passion. The activities are fun. But when I look at like being able to help somebody for real, like where like, there's that old analogy of the starfish, like where all the starfish wash up on the beach and you can't clear them all, but like each one you toss back in, you're making a difference. Helping someone find housing, helping someone, get food, helping someone in any one of those different areas, it ties into that ripple in a pond, that seed in a pond analogy that you used earlier, Lowe's. I know that I'm going to have no idea how I'm going to have an impact on someone, but I know that those changes do make differences in people's lives. And that's the magic of it.
after tonight, whoever's listening, I mean, I think they're gonna think of something and do it. At least one thing.
Yeah, one. Like it's just one.
Just only one. You just want them to do one thing,
Yeah.
you know, and because of tonight, it's like, wow, she can do 29 million things. I mean, at least could try one thing, you know.
Well, like because of you, like if you notice, like basketball is nowhere on that list because that's like not something that I've got any. Let's be very clear, any talent for. But because of meeting you, like I borrowed my son's basketball and found Heavy D's Park down the street from me and started taking some shots. Now, let's be clear. There is no one-on-one between us here. I would just give you the money right off front. But, it's okay to do these things and not be good at them. It's okay to be curious as to what that's like. I admire your skill and your talent in a space where I've got none. And it's like, okay, great. Like I'm going to learn how to shoot some shots. I was talking to Lowe's and I was talking to Gus, and I'm going to learn how to do this. I'm not going to be great. No one is going to pay me to do this. WNBA is not afraid. But I'm going to learn how to do this, and it's going to be fun. And I think that if people approach it from that perspective with that kind of curiosity,
Right.
of just what does it even feel like to shoot a shot? Or to get close, because I was getting excited all with I was hitting the rim, and I was like, yeah, and I was like, it's closer, like I made contact. In archery we call that hitting the paper. Like when you first start shooting, like those arrows are going in ways that are going to kill somebody, like your friend. But like the second you hit the paper, you're like, whoa, I hit the paper, and then eventually you'll get to I hit the target, and I hit the center of the target, and then like you'll Robin Hood it, and then you're like, it was worth the price of those 2 arrows to be able to do that. It's just try.
Well, yeah, I think I had been avoiding Nicole for some years, and particularly before Gus got sick. She made an offer to me and Gus.
Yes.
About it would be a tremendous. She said, "I got an idea for a tremendous fundraiser."
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we could raise a lot of money for the Boys and Girls Club. And I was like, okay, what was that? And she said, well, you and Gus get in a plane, right? And you jump out and people will donate to see that happen. And I'm like, I'm going to avoid Nicole at all costs because I'm not jumping out of plane.
Well, I started my nonprofit, Skydive for Causes, which does just that. It helps people to skydive, one, to learn about the sport of skydiving, but also to do that, to skydive to fundraise. We actually don't charge people for the services we provide, which is coordinating, like you and your friends getting to the drop zone, getting your jumps done, getting it filmed, getting the whole fundraising mechanism set up. But yes, that offer, Skydive for Causes turned 5 years old on May 24th. So yes, if you ever want to take us up on that offer, I'm sure your viewers would love to see you jump out of the plane.
I'm laughing, boy. Woo. I'm trying to even think of, I don't think my mind, goes over to climbing the glacier, I'm not. I'm trying to figure out what I could think of that I would be willing to adventure out on.
We can get you on a firewalk. We can get you on a firewalk.
The firewalk? What's the firewalk?
That's when you walk across fire.
With no shoes?
Yes, with no shoes, barefoot.
Oh, no.
It's quick. It's 10 feet. 10 feet. You could do it.
One of my former players, college players, he said,
look at that. We're raising money. I got 100 on those jumping right now. See, this could be tremendous.
Ray, that is not enough money. Right. That $100 is not going to help.
I saw the question pop up, Liz, around like, does doing these things help with work, or does work help with this? So I can definitely say work helps afford this. Like some of these activities are free, and that's great. But others of them are a little bit pricey. But I have to say that, for me, I'm the kind of person where I need to do things that require focus. Like if you notice for all of the sports that I engage in, you have to be very present and focused. And so I
Hmm.
like that, I like being able to put my head in that space where it isn't all just like, like when you're trying to feed a community, that's going to take years to see the benefit of feeding a community.
Right.
When you're trying to jump out of a plane, you're going to wrap this up in 20 minutes and either you're not going to have a problem or you're going to not have any problems. So, I want to make sure that it's, in terms of the activities that I do,
My
it will
aunt
never
said,
happen.
my Joy said it. It
Yeah.
will never happen.
Yeah. Don't tell people that you're gonna do it, Lowe's. You just got to go do it and then
Do
send
it.
everybody the video.
Oh
Um,
man,
but
I
yeah,
think we got some more pictures too. We have more
oh
pictures.
sure. I know. I feel like I gave you all the pictures.
No,
Let's see what you got.
I think we got more pictures.
Oh, meeting Jennifer Lopez and holding the Bronx's largest street fair for the return of Jenny from the block. So yes, that was fun and exciting. Uh, opportunity to be her personal escort around the Bronx for a day. And I have to give her. I heard the tabloids that she got married this weekend, so congratulations on that.
Ah,
But she really does care about the community, and so to the extent that she was willing to come back to really focus on the kids of the Bronx. She
mm,
came into the Children's Hospital at that's there on Bainbridge Avenue, met with the parents, met with the families, was just really, really, really amazing about it. So yeah,
yeah. My
really
wife said
dynamic person to me.
insurance paid, jump
So
back.
you can do it, Lowe's. We can get you out of
like,
a
like,
plane. It'll be very
like
safe.
I said earlier, right? Man, somebody knocked me out, and I woke up and I was in the air floating. And I wake up and I'm in the air. I like that's the only way I'm getting there. You know, I'm never gonna say never, but never.
Yeah, the teddy bear hospital that we ran, teaching kids about illness in a way that makes sense to them. They came in as parent partners. And so their bears were sick. You'd be very surprised at the things that they said that their bears got sick with. And so getting them through the emergency room and the healthcare system actually is helping them to be better engaged. And I would be remiss, and I absolutely don't want to leave out. I know that you have a number of listeners, a number of folks in D9, but I do want to give a very special recognition to my Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated
Oh, yeah.
chapter, Tau Nu Omega, in the South Bronx. That are these are a tremendous group of women who are doing amazing work relative to helping me to continue this. At the work that I do, I'm supporting our collective efforts relative to uplift in education in the South Bronx community. And so definitely a place where a big part of my heart activities and resources is tied in. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that.
Awesome. And where's your husband at?
He is downstairs. So I'm in my office and who knows where he is.
Man, he need to come. He need to come up and verify that he agreed for you to do all this stuff. Yeah.
Look, well, one, we're still married after all of these years, and he
Yeah.
takes a lot of these photos. Like he is
Oh, well,
definitely
he's the smart one.
he's a fan. So I am very fortunate with that. But he's like, somebody's got to be here for our sons, and so he has taken on that job.
Okay, all right, all right. I'm waiting next time I see him. What's going on? So, you received in our closing here. You've received a number of awards, but you just received an award, I guess, today.
Today, yeah, today.
Yeah. So,
Uh,
tell us about that award.
Sure. So the New York Regional National Association of Healthcare Executives has named me the 2022 Senior Health Executive of the Year. So I'm tremendously excited and honored that the acronym spells out New York NACI. And NACI is a tremendous organization. What a lot of people don't realize is up until the 70s, individuals who were Black weren't allowed to be parts of the American Medical Association, the Association for Healthcare Executives and the like. And so lots of organizations that begin with the word national were the organizations that were set up for Black Americans and other people of color to participate because they couldn't participate in the majority organizations. And so being recognized by the organization that has historically always represented senior Black executives is a tremendous honor. I am proud to, yeah, and obviously in no way feel tokenized, but like I am proud to be, one of a growing number of Black executives at my organization doing really tremendous things. Over this year, I was named a top 25 innovator in the nation by Modern Healthcare in the space of public health. Earlier this week, I was named as a New Jersey business healthcare hero in the field of public health. And, these honors are important in their own right because they represent the work that myself and my team are doing. And none of this is possible without a team. It's not a solo flyer activity. But I think what's also important is, I remember when, Ursula Burns became CEO of Xerox. And I hung a picture of her in my office because it was like, hey, leadership from a woman who looks like me can happen. And so it's important to be there and to be recognized. I was in Florida this last week, standing in line at a Starbucks, and this little kid was tugging at his mom, who came over and whispered to me saying, he thinks you're Stacey Abrams because of the hair. And young enough to recognize sort of the general outline of it, but it was just he was looking up to his aspirational heroes. And while I'm not comparing myself to Stacey Abrams, one day, but not today, I do think that it's important as a Black woman to be in spaces, to be visible, to be recognized, to be skilled. This is, I'm not getting this because I'm cute. I'm getting this because I'm working hard, and I'm working hard for things and communities that are important. And I'm grateful for the acknowledgments, but I also understand the responsibilities to the community that I have.
Awesome. I want to say congratulations. I think everybody's saying congratulations. Yeah, and I want to say in closing here that, man, I want to thank you for joining the board at the Boys and Girls Club. And I thank you for your support of me, during that time, and all the many wonderful things that you brought to the city of Mount Vernon. I mean, man, we do love you, and
Love is
appreciate you.
love is mutual. Love is mutual.
Yeah, yeah, and tell your husband like these. He's like,
Yeah, $100 for you to jump. Don't
yeah,
worry, we can get this number up.
we
I'm sure we can make this
did.
happen.
I think he said the insurance was paid.
Now that was Patrice that said the insurance was paid. We're gonna get you out there.
I'm sure that your husband said the insurance is paid too.
Yeah, no, he hasn't killed me yet, so I'm good. Let's go.
So, Nicole, thank you very much for taking time out your busy schedule. This was a privilege for me to be able to have you on, and I mean, hey, keep up the great work,
Mhm.
right? And keep us abreast of what you're going to do next.
Yes,
Maybe my wife will join in with you.
well, I mean, Ghana is sort of the big thing that's up next, and I'll see what kinds of adventures I can have while I'm there. So,
Yeah. All right. Well, there are a lot of adventures there. I think what did Losey do? He did something crazy while he was there. Oh, I think he parachuted,
a parasailer.
parasailing. Yeah, off
That
this
that
mountain. He went running off there and had the guy
woo.
on him. And the guy was a little, because my son's what, 6'1", 6 foot, and and when he jumped off with that guy, I think he was a little heavier than he thought he was.
No.
So he's like, oh, we don't know how this is gonna work out, but he did it, and he's a lot braver than I am. So yeah, we're looking forward to seeing what your next adventures are.
Sounds good. Oh, he went spelunking. Yes. Ray went spelunking with me. We were in Mallorca. So I got Ray into a cave. That was good too.
Yeah. So again, Nicole, thank you very much.
All
I
right.
enjoyed
Thank you
it.
so much for having me. It was an honor. And I
Uh,
hope that this has been helpful to somebody.
it will be. I'm assured of that. So again, thank you. And tell your husband I said hello.
I will give him your regards.
All right. And so thank you to everyone who continuously supports Lowe's More in the Blueprint each and every week. I hope that tonight's interview or podcast has been a blessing to you. I pray that you continue to enjoy your summers, right? You know, I said this last week. If every day you wake up, enjoy it, love it, love this life. And I pray that you guys will have a blessed week. I look forward to seeing you all next week. And God bless you. And hey, be kind to someone this week. Love you guys. I think my wife might have went on vacation or something.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Lowe's More, the Blueprint Podcast. Stay connected and follow us at our website, www.lowesmore.com. That's LOWESMOORE.com. You can also join the discussion on Twitter at Lowe's More and on Facebook at Lowe's More Jr. As always, thank you for pushing your mindset towards a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast to stay fully up to date with everything we're up to. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other.
What they teaching is a joke. I ain't buying it like I'm broke. Insufficient funds for insignificant.